Hi, I'm Leah Cuthbert with the Shuswap Needle Arts Guild, and I'm here to teach you 5B, part 5B of our virtual workshop on wool applique and embroidery. We're going to talk about how to assemble the pincushion, how to make the little bit that goes inside, and how to sew the top to the bottom and get a nice little circle, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to cover today. So let's get started. Do you recall a few episodes ago, it seems like forever, I know, where I told you about the miracle that is freezer paper, and you cut out your circle, and I said hang on to it. Now we're at that part. Now we're at the part for why to hang on to it. I've already gone ahead. Well, actually no, I'll peel it off. So I've got this circle. Of course it came from a taco box, and what I did was I just used it as my template and ironed it directly onto the cardboard where it thoughtfully stuck. I'm always surprised by how many times I can get away with this. And then I could use it, or I've jumped ahead, but that's okay. So we've done that. But pretend we did this first. Here's another one of those circles that I've ironed onto fabric, and what we're making, of course, is the backside. Making the backside of the pincushion. So when you do this, you iron it down. And this is, the original pattern template. Cut it out so that you've got, 3/8 or more, a little bit more of an inch around the outside. And when you do that, it looks like this. Here we go. And then you take your cardboard and you stick it on there like that. So you can kind of see, actually let me flip this over so that maybe it's easier to see with that. So you can kind of get a feeling for how much space I put around the outside. Now, there's two ways to chase making this the right size, making it end up like this. Well, there's probably more than two, but I'll show you two. So the first one, and I've gone ahead and done it, I apologize for that. I ran a basting stitch around the outside, and then I stuck my cardboard in here and then pulled on this part, pulled it tight, and then ironed like crazy until I was sure that I had all sides down. So that's how I did that. And that's kind of my go-to. I saw this on the internet though. Yes, tinfoil. I saw tinfoil on the internet. And what they were doing was they were getting their fabric wet. So I'm going to spray this rather ineffectively at this point in time. I suspect it's because I'm just about out of, there we go, got it working. So just get it all sprayed up so it's damp. Yeah, that's pretty damp. And then stick it on your tin foil. Take your cardboard, put that on top of that, and then fold up the tin foil. Yeah, I can't remember who I saw doing this online. There's probably quite a few people doing it now because I remember seeing it a number of years ago. So it's by no stretch of the imagination my brilliance at all, except that I found it online and I'm showing it to you. So I'll give myself half a point for effort on that. Okay, so I've got it all folded up, and then I like to go around the edge like this just to make sure that I've got a clean edge. And I've done this a number of times, so I'm getting a lot of use out of this tin foil. I mean, just saying, if you're worried about it. Okay, so there we go. It's all tight. And then what I do is I go flip it down, run my iron over top of it. Now I flip it over, and I do it from this side. And then I also use it as an opportunity just to take a look. And I'm looking right here. I've got a weird bump going there. So, and by the way, yeah, this is really hot. So you can spot your weird bumps. It's better probably to spot them before you iron the fabric than after, but regardless. All right, done. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to let this cool, and we're going to unwrap it and see what kind of a present we've got inside. It's been a couple of minutes, and let's just see. It's still quite warm, but I'm not burning myself, so let's just unwrap the present here. Now, I used a lot of spray on this, and the spray was Mary Ellen's Best Press, but you can use water, and I would have if I'd had water close at hand. So there it is. It's still got the cardboard in it. I'm just going to give it another iron. I want to pick it up and see. I've got this spot here that's been bugging me, but you know what? That's more of a flaw in my template than a factor of the tin foil. So now I'm just going to iron it all in, all the edges. I'm going to flip it over again. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to just do this and open it up so you can see it. Okay, there we go. Now it's still trying to run away a bit. So we'll just okay. Okay, and then it's ready to go. Now, let's grab anything. Let's just grab anything. Here we go. Let's grab this. Stick it on top. So yeah, it's the right size. I can see that I'm going to have to sort of oh, pardon me. It's the right size. I can see that I'm going to have to hand manipulate that little bump when I'm sewing it on. The other thing that I would do, if I was going to do this again, and I did, I did this piece, and do you see how I've actually clipped it all the way around the circle? And let's open it up so you can see. You can kind of see where the seam is. It's kind of the fold. You see where that is? I didn't clip all the way to the fold. I just clipped a few millimeters away from it. And it sure seemed to want to fold and sit nicer than this. And this is okay. This, with clipping around the outside of it, this is better. So now there you go. You've got two fabulous options. You can do it by hand, or you can do it by freezer paper. I'll be interested to hear from you and see what you think. We have been working on this top part of the pincushion. I went ahead and finished this one. I used a blanket stitch around the outside. And then it occurred to me that perhaps there might be someone that wanders into this by accident that is wondering, how do I make the inside of a pincushion if you're not just going to stuff immediately into here? And that would refer to these kinds of things that I make. And I usually make them I always pretty much make them with a sewing machine. And I use a zigzag stitch around the outside, and I go around 2 or 3 times. I layer them. In this case, the crushed walnut shells are between 2 layers of muslin, and this is quilt batting that I put on top. And yeah, I like to make sure that nothing's going to fall out, so I just kind of go crazy with it. I make a whole bunch of them at once, and of course none of them were the right size for this project. But I am making a I'm not doing the pincushion. I'm doing the paperweight. I just love the way that sounds. So I'll just show you how for those of you that are wondering, how I'll do this, how I'll make that inside portion and make it strong enough, because here's one here. Smaller one. It's too small for my project. But how I'll make it strong enough so that I don't have little copper-coated lead BBs falling out all over the place. So what do you need? Well, you start off with a piece of a sleeve from your dad's shirt, or any piece of fabric that you're not using. It doesn't really matter. I would stay away, except that I'd stay away from stretch fabrics and t-shirt material, although I suppose they could work, but I'm kind of old school, so I like to stick with a sleeve. And then what you do is you have to decide how big it's going to be. So you need the sleeve. I cut this out. I used the handy dandy freezer paper size. It is exactly the same size as our pincushion. You notice that I did not cut it out with a seam allowance, and that's because I want it to be smaller than this so it will fit inside. But this is a great place to start with it. So you need that. You'll need just some, I'm using some just regular weight Aurifil cotton sewing thread doubled. Anything that you have will probably work. If you got like some of that buttonhole thread or something like that that's really, really tough, you might want to try using that. So here's what I do. First of all, I cut out 2 pieces. This looks a little rough because I was trying to, in an outtake, show you the miracle that is the rotary cutter with the pinking shear blade. And yeah, it didn't work the way I'd hoped, but I still got little bits of, so that's why it's not round. Okay, so now the next thing to decide is, if that's how big my pincushion is, how big do I need to have this be? And it depends on how much you're filling it with. So I've got 3 sizes here of templates. That's the size, the original size. This is just slightly smaller, and I don't know, can you see how it doesn't leave very much room around the edges, and I think that will be too big. So I think where I'm going with is I'm going with this one here, and even that one seems a little bit big, but it's a place to start. So what I'm going to do is just put that on there and grab a pen or a pencil. Here's a pencil. And I'm just going to draw it right on the top here, all the way around. So I can tell right now that I'm going to want to have this be a little bit, even a little smaller than this. So I'm going to just quickly make it smaller. I'm just going to follow my way around the circle on the inside by about 1/8 of an inch. Ish. Everything's ishy with me. I'm very ishy-wishy. Okay, there we go. So that's what I'm going to sew on. And what I'm going to use is the back stitch, the tried and true back stitch. And you need to have your stitches be small enough that what you're trying to hold in your little bag won't fall out. So I don't want to have these all over the floor at some point. This is me panicking that if the whole pincushion explodes someday, which I'm sure it won't. But anyways, so I'm just going to, there's 2 ways to do this. One way is to just go around in a run and do a running stitch all the way around the outside on your line. And then go around it again. And if you do that, it'll be kind of like doing the back stitch. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick with the back stitch as best I can. And I am going to go around this circle with the back stitch probably twice. And I am also not going to make you watch me do that. So I'll come back when I've got that done. I'm back. I sewed around my circle. What I did was I did the back stitch going around this way, and then I flipped it over and I did the back stitch going around that way. And of course I remembered to leave a little hole here to fill this up. If I was not filling it with these, I might have left that just a little bigger for stuffing purposes, but these are problematic. How do you get these into these if you don't have a funnel? And I don't. So what I've found can work is, you know, these big, plastic mailing wrappers that you get, that you can get in the mail. I found that if I cut a piece of that off, so I've got it, so I've got it like that, there we go, piece like that, and it's got a corner in it, and I'm going to cut the tip off And the next important thing here is having a place for the little BBs that escape, have a place for them to escape to. So that's what this jar is for, because it doesn't matter how often I do this, I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel every single time. So if somebody's got a really good plan that's not telling me to use a funnel, because I know that part of it, yeah, help me out here. You let me know. You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Let's see if this works. I've got my thing in my other thing. I've got my plastic in my bag. I'm going to just use some tape like this, and I'm going to use some tape like this just across it so that it can't escape. It's going to go back in the jar. Okay, let's see what happens. Do a few at a time. Oop, I had an escape, but most of them are going in. I am probably trying to fill this too full. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to put less in there, because I have a confession to make. This particular paperweight has to be a certain weight, and the weight that I want it to be when it's all done is 1/2 pound, 8 ounces. And that means, by all done, I mean not just this portion of it, but I want the whole thing, this whole thing with all the fabric and everything inside, to be 1/2 pound. And why do I want that? For when I have a bad week and I jump on the scale, or if I'm trying to lose weight and I go, ugh, I only lost 1/2 pound. I will have this to put in my hands, so I can go, okay, you know what? I lost 1/2 pound, good for me. Or I'll be able to say, more likely, is that's only 1/2 pound. It's not that much. It works both ways. Anyways, so that's why I'm so determined that it's going to have that amount in there. So then the other thing I wanted to tell you, or maybe I told you already, I'm so sorry, is it took 15 minutes to do this sewing. That's all it took. And it would have taken me a lot longer than that to dig out my sewing machine at this point in time. So what I'm going to do is finish sewing it, and then we'll start on assembling the outside part. For what it's worth, I decided to film the last few stitches. Fast forward if, it's not going to hurt my feelings. But I just thought I'd get this done this way so you can kind of see what I'm up to. I'm being very careful to not lose these BBs out of this thing, because I've done that. It takes quite a while to pick them all up. Okay, that's one side. I'm going to go through to the other side. First, I'm going to do a quick knot here. That. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So jump through. And I'm just going to do a back stitch all the way back. I'm going to try to keep it a little smaller. You can see it's not gorgeous. It's not my most gorgeous work, but I'm stuffing this inside something else, so I don't feel the need to worry about it. Or clearly I'm worrying about it a little bit because I mentioned it. but that's all. I'm done. I'm not going to mention it. Okay, I'll get this knot done here. Okay, there we go. There it is. I think what I might do is I am going to take my pinking shears just a little bit around the outside, just in case this thing wants to ravel a bit on me. don't have a lot of room on this edge. Have to be careful. All right, happier with that. Now the next trick is making this fit in this. And I think it will. It kind of sits in there quite nicely. And then this will go over top. And then I will blanket stitch my way around. So what I'm going to do is go find a place to sit down and do this, because I've discovered standing and hand sewing aren't my friends. I will be right back. I'm back. Because I've got sort of a pink and blue bit of action going on the back, and pink and a little bit of blue in there, I'm going to use this. Now this is a size 5 pearl cotton, and to do the blanket stitch around the outside, I think I'm going to double it. I'm going to double it up, and the reason for that is I think it'll show up better, because I don't want the blanket stitch to disappear the way it disappeared here. Sometimes you want your blanket stitch to be minimalist, and you may want to do that yourself, and that's totally awesome and fine and dandy. I, on the other hand, think that I'd like to use this and see if I can make it, how bright I can make it. I'm just going to cut it in half at both ends. And because I'm going to double it up in this case, what I'm going to do is, when you look at this half, or the other half, whichever half it is, I'm going to take 2 threads from the same half here, so that in this case the colors match on the way around, so it sort of doubles up on the one color, as opposed to some of the other times when I've doubled up and it hasn't been a problem in terms of me visually to have blue against pink, so to speak. So there we go. That's a nice long piece. And get my Scooby-Doo needle holder here. Grab the bunny. We'll see if I can get, sometimes it's tricky when you've got a double thread to put it through one hole. Let's just see what we can do here. Oh, the bunny's not happy. Okay, well, let's do it one at a time. Put that one through. I think I bent my bunny. Oh, and I broke my thread, that's for sure. Get that out of the way. So I got one through here. Okay, let's get this other one through. I got to get this through. So what I'm going to do is pull this thread down. Incidentally, I'm not recommending this as a fabulous way to thread your needle. Definitely not. But let's just see if we can make it work. Get this next one to go through. Okay. Toss the bunny aside. I'm going to pull that through. So I've got both of my threads through here. I think I'm going to pull it down to this other end and work from this end. I'm not quite sure why, but that's what I'm going to do. And I am going to just tie a knot in this, but I'm going to clip the ends so they're closer to the same spot, the end at the same spot. Okay, so let's pull that through, get a big old knot in there. And then what I'm going to do is hide my knot in between these 2 layers of fabric. I'm going to line her up. Sorry, I checked out for a minute there. It's just going to grab my silicone, these aren't tips, but the ends are silicone. And the theory is that if you want to run an iron over them, they actually are okay with that, and they're not going to melt. So that's an interesting That's an interesting premise, because I'm going to iron these. So I'm going to start just by pinning it. If you've got wonder clips, I like to use my wonder clips too. But that means another trip. That's going to send me on another trip away from here. So I'm going to just use the pins. When last we met, I had buried the knot in terms of the blanket stitch, and I was getting ready to do the first stitch. And I'm going to make these ones a little bit bigger than I did before. This particular one, so I'm down, I'm kind of over maybe 3/8 of an inch, a little more than 1/4 is what I'm shooting for. And I'm just going to pull that one up, and then you can see here what's happened. And this is something that doesn't happen if you, or I find it doesn't happen if you baste your way around instead of using the tin foil. I'm sure that as I practice, or if I decide to practice with the tin foil, I'll get better at it. Maybe. I don't know. So I'll just keep blanket stitching my way around. And when I get halfway around, that's when I would stuff it full. I will show you that when I get there. So I haven't made it halfway around. Made it maybe 1/3 of the way around. But my thread's getting short. So I just wanted to show you quickly how I deal with that. What I'm going to do is just run it through run the needle right through my last stitch and pull it tight. And depending upon how I feel about life, sometimes I run it through more than once. But then what I do is I try to finish it off in between the folds of my fabric here. So let's just do that. Easier said than done at this juncture. There we go. Okay, that's done. And my needle fell off. I'm going to have to rethread that and bury the knot at some point soon. But in the meantime, I'll load it back up and carry on until I get about halfway around. Roughly, I'm more than halfway around. And that leaves me with a pocket right here. And what you could do is put some quilt batting in there if you wanted to, and use it as a coaster. I think I am going to use this as a coaster. So, but I'm not going to put quilt batting in. I just feel like this wool is heavy enough. And when I say coaster, I don't know, because this is kind of bumpy. But I'm going to use this as a flat decoration as opposed to a pin cushion. But if you were going to do the pin cushion, here's one of the ones that I made. Clearly I had a different shape in mind. It's not round, but it's about the right size. So I'm going to stuff that in there. And I tend to stuff it with the quilt batting on the top and the walnut shells on the bottom. And I can't even begin to tell you why that is. It just is what it is. It's, oh, sorry, that's a horrible phrase to be using nowadays, isn't it? Curse you, American politics. Okay, sorry. Done, I'm done. Okay, so let's get, you know what? I was going to make this into maybe a coaster kind of thing, but now I'm thinking that I am going to make it into a pincushion. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll do a couple stitches with all of that bulk in there, just so you can see me struggle with it, and then that way, if you struggle with it, you know, you'll feel like you're not the only one. Or if one of you out there has done this a bunch of times and has just the easiest, quickest way to do this, and you would like to share it, please do. Please put a comment down below, and I'll see if I can. I'll see if I can figure it out and then show everybody. Otherwise, yeah, we're kind of stuck just dealing with it the way it is. So I'm pulling my needle through there. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to hit pause now, and I will finish my way around, and then we'll talk about other options. I'm on the home stretch here, so I thought I'd come back. And I've just got maybe 3 more stitches, maybe. Snug it up. Maybe 4. I'll make that a big long stitch. Okay, so here I am. Here I am at the end. And I still need to get over here, so I'm just going to do that. I'm just going right over here like this. And it's done. And I'm going to do a knot on this side. I'm going to go through it again. Sorry, gosh, I'm the worst, aren't I, about staying on camera. And then I want to just bury this knot, or just bury my thread more than the knot. I'm not going to be able to bury the knot. It's pretty thick. The knot's going to have to stay. I got my thread buried. I'm going to stretch it out. Drop my needle. Clip this off. Oh, clip this off. There we go. Okay, and there it is. Pincushion. It's got walnut shells in it at the bottom. A few days ago, I was chatting with our friend Jerry, also a member of the Shuswap Needle Arts Guild, and we were talking about this pattern. And some of you, and I think I've mentioned it a few times in passing, some of you might want to just do blanket stitch around every single piece of this and not do any of the decorative stitches, and it can look very nice. So I did this one, and the leaves are blanket stitched down. Let's get in close enough so that you can kind of see it there. So there, everything was blanket stitched down, and then I did the lazy daisy in the center and threw some French knots at it. But you don't have to do that. You could just blanket stitch the whole thing down and it'll look quite lovely. What I did here, and the reason you're seeing the fly stitch and lazy daisies around pieces of it, is that when I was done, if you notice, the center is done with a red, and the flower is done with purple, and you can see those. But for some reason I did the leaves with a green that totally matches the green, so you can't really see the stitches, and it was really bugging me. So I needed to add something to it, so I just put this vine around the outside of it, just so that I'd like it more, I think. And this is the piece that I'm going to use my half pound of BBs that I showed you how to deal with, and I think I'm going to use my hand sewn back. And the reason I'm going to do that is only because I think I like that green color better on the back. So I'm not going to show you how to sew this together. You know, we've done that. You've sat painfully through it. So this is me interrupting me. I just wanted to show you this one up close. You can't really tell what I think, but let's just see. Before I did the blanket stitch around the edge, I actually whip stitched this with a tiny stitch. I whip stitched it all together with one of my really thin threads, and then I came at it and did the blanket stitch. I don't always do that. I just wanted to revisit the process just to see if there's very much difference. Sometimes there is. Sometimes it's a lot of difference. In this case, not so much. This one, I didn't do a whip stitch before I did the blanket stitch. This one went together just raw. So the reason I did do the whip stitch on this is because it's so heavy, and I just thought, you know what, it'd probably be better to have this contained before I did any decorative stitching. The last thing I want to tell you is, yes, I'm aware that I did not cover the whipped blanket stitch. I meant to, and I forgot. But I will cover it in part 6, and then you can go back and whip your pincushion with a whip stitch if you want or not. So let's carry on. I think we're all done now. I think this officially makes us done part 5. So thanks for hanging in with part 5A, which are just plain old part 5, and now finishing off with part 5B. So our next move is to move on to part 6, which is going to be to work on the trivet. I'll see you there.